All right, welcome back, everyone. I have a very, very special guest with me here today. I have our client Jessica, who's been working with me for quite a while now, a couple years. And this is an interview I've been really looking forward to, just because Jessica has an awesome story, and I feel like there's been a lot of how would you put it? Like, I guess ups and downs in your journey, right? Of like different things you've been through, different moments where like you've felt very confident in what you were doing, other moments where you were telling me that you've questioned the whole thing. But I just think like I love your story because I feel like you at the end of the day have like come out on top, especially over the last couple of like months here. Like we've really seen like a massive kind of like growth in your business. So Jessica, why don't you kind of like take a second here to like formally introduce yourself to the people, tell everyone who you are, and yeah, just a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah, so like you said, my name is Jessica. I am in Central Virginia, and my business is Freedom Canine Training. And I started my business, I think about 7 years ago. And just to touch on, what you were saying, yeah, my growth, and hopefully this serves as hope for anybody out there, has been excruciatingly slow.
Uh-huh.
That's probably the best way to do it. And I'll sometimes gain some traction and get really good at, moving forward, and then we backslide, right? It's actually very synonymous with training some dogs. I
Mm.
could be a challenging dog to train, I guess. But working through this, persevering through it is kind of where we are. And I know we'll get to that a little bit
Yeah.
later. But I started my business, like I said, about 7 years ago. And my story is that I had my own messed up dogs, and that first set of dogs did not benefit from me becoming a trainer. My new set of dogs that I've had for I guess 6 years now, actually a little bit longer, 7.5, 8 years. They're the ones that benefited from it. So I also had, and I don't really want to get into this. It is still a heartbreaking story for me. We actually had a dog in our life that did get euthanized for behavioral issues. And so that's hard for those owners that are dealing with something like that. And I don't want to cry here.
Oh,
But
okay.
folks that are dealing with that, my heart goes out to them. It is such a painful, ego killing, guilt wrenching. It's just all of the emotions that you go through.
Yeah.
And really, that's what fueled me not only to make my life better with my newer dogs. And it wasn't even really intentional. We went out and got the other dogs passed from older age. And we got our new dogs, and they were the ones that benefited because my thought was, I'm not going through that again.
Yeah.
And then I started to see the possibilities and seeing where we could go and how I could take some unruly dogs and fully change them. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I could pass this along to people, like how much could I benefit their lives? And so I think that's kind of getting into a little bit of my why, like,
Yeah.
really feeling for folks that are going through that same challenging issue. Because those of us that have gone through it know how stressful and like heavy it really can be.
Yeah.
So fast forward about a year or so, I looked into, I was like, oh, maybe this would be something that I would enjoy doing. And started doing I don't know how common it is anymore, but internships. I did a lot of hands-on, so internships, shadows. Throughout COVID, I did some, continuing education online. Of course, we couldn't go very far. Had some mentors in my life, people that operate on a really high level, people that I resonated with that were really good people, and that's kind of where I did my education. But even to back up a little bit, I kind of jumped in the deep end head first. I had no dog training experience
Yeah.
aside from my own, no entrepreneurial experience, no sales experience. It really was customer service. So I jumped into it, probably with a little bit of an ego at the time,
Mhm.
saying, "Hey, this is going to be good. I'm going to be good at this."
Yeah.
And for those that are in the journey, especially being an entrepreneur, owning your own business and just doing it all at once, it is definitely humbling. That is for
Yeah.
sure. And I
Yeah.
think part of those part of those components are why some of my, and then of course, our attitude about it sometimes, again, that ego, it had to be broken down a little bit. And that could have all contributed to, my slow growth for
Yeah.
sure.
But the thing and I don't want to overstate it, right? I started out and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we've talked about this many times of like this is by and large most people's experience when they start a business. You know, there are a lot of like ups and downs. And so like I really appreciate you like taking the time to share that with everybody, because everybody, there's so many people that love to paint themselves and their business as it's all perfect, you know, like nothing ever goes wrong. And, you know, like I just make $100,000 a month, and, you
Yes.
know, I never have difficult clients. I never get people that say no to me. You know, I'm working with like celebrities and stuff like that. Like you see all of this on social media. And the truth is like, it's a little bit nonsensical, and nobody really has that, at least not from the beginning. It takes time to build a really successful business and a prominent business like that. And so anybody, this is just anybody out there who's listening and maybe kind of feeling like they're dealing with, like you said, Jessica, like a little bit of a backslide or something like that, and there's just inconsistency. It's like that's what running a business is all about. Is it takes time to build it, it takes time to get that consistency, and it's really hard. And you know, if it were easy, everyone would do it. And so, Jessica, why don't you talk a little bit more about that? Like, why don't you talk a little bit about what you felt like was going to be the case getting in when you started your business, and then like a little bit more of like what the reality actually was.
Oh yeah, yeah. So just to get this out of my brain and touch on what you were saying, 100%. The when you know social media can be great, but it's also a bunch of bullshit, right? So you've got the 1% that it just happens immediately, right? The more common and the more realistic view on this is, yeah, it takes years, and those that are billionaires that didn't always, most of them don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It does take a lot of determination and perseverance and grit, really. Um, so yeah, so you know what was my expectation? My expectation number one was, you know, I didn't also I didn't always give myself a lot of grace for error as well. That's
Mhm.
just part of my personality. I'm definitely a person that's extremely hard on myself, and I don't mean to, you know me. I know a lot of folks don't know me. When I say ego, my ego had to do with having extremely high standards and expectations for myself more than
Yeah.
anything else. And my expectation going into it was like Field of Dreams, build it and they will come, right? I really thought having an attitude of things being easy for me, especially because in the past things had been easy for me.
Mhm.
I picked up things really quickly. I did not expect to have to fall into that grit piece. And I think a lot of people maybe feel that way.
Yeah.
So it was a little more difficult than I thought, a lot of downtime. And I did spend that downtime doing my best to work through whether it's personal growth and having mentors and learning from people. Not only, of course, with dog training, like I said, I started everything from the floor. So I had to learn how to train a dog properly. I had to learn how to run my business, how to start it, like all of the nitty gritty, like every single little hat. I had to learn how to do. And that just, of course, takes time. So my expectation, like I said, was it's going to be easy. I'm going to build it. Life is going to be great. And I'm going to get to, train people and change lives. Like that was my whole thing. I'm going to change everybody's lives and everything's going to be peachy. And so it didn't, of course, it did happen very slowly.
Yeah.
And, things went pretty well for a little while. And then I hopped on that roller coaster where there was
Yeah.
some famine. And I don't know if I'm getting into this too soon, but when you and I first talked, my first statement to you was, I'm gonna have to shut this down. I'm
Mhm.
going to have to stop my business and figure something else out
Yeah.
because it's just not working for me. And at that point, when I first meant that was I'm just not making any money. I don't have the clients. It was more of the sales and things like that. But, and again, maybe getting ahead of myself here.
That's okay.
Sometimes it doesn't have to be monetary. Sometimes there's definitely times where I question, do I really want this? Because, with what I do, I specialize in aggression. So I do deal with harder cases, harder owners where they're struggling. And I don't, again, a whole nother rabbit hole. If somebody's willing to put the work in or have a conversation with me, I try not to nitpick and turn them down or anything like that. But those are all really challenging things. So there's definitely maybe, I don't know, probably every other day sometimes where I'm thinking, gosh, do I really want this? And then fast forward to where I am today with how busy I am right now, there's still that question. I'm
Mhm.
exhausted. I'm tired. I now need to grow in a different area. And
Yeah.
so, do I really want this entrepreneurship? Right. So, it happens in a lot
Yeah,
of
it's
different
kind of
ways.
like an ever evolving thing. Like I really think that that's also the thing. Like I think that's how you know you are an entrepreneur is that like you look at it and go like it's actually a good thing. I mean, it's good to have focus and be able to like really focus on building one thing because some people have like the ADD brain where they can't do that, right? And they're like they're always hopping to the next scheme, the next get rich quick thing, which doesn't really even exist. But I actually think it's kind of a freeing thing, you know, where you can look at it and be like, hey, I don't necessarily need to do exactly what I'm doing today for the rest of my life. Like that idea is almost kind of very intimidating to me. Like if I couldn't change and reinvent myself, like that would
Mm,
really kind of suck.
yep.
But that's something that I really love about you is like, first off, I kind of I want to touch on, I don't want to forget this. So I'm going to say this now, but how your willingness to test different things. So I think a lot of times people are very fearful and they go, my business is this is the only way my business can run. I do board and trains and I do private lessons, and if I don't do board and trains, I won't make money. And a lot of people are like scared to make a leap. But I remember one day having one of our coaching calls and you saying like, I kind of feel like I'm done with this whole board and train thing. Like I kind of want to really make a go at strictly doing private lessons. And you know, we created programs, or you really created the programs about like charging high ticket. And so I think you have a business right now that a lot of people would love to own, where you are don't have to have dogs in your home, and you're selling high ticket programs, and you're not bending over backwards and working with clients every single day. But your average program that you're selling a lot of the time right now is like a $2,500 private training program. And to some people listening, that may seem insane, you know, but I feel like you're a testament to really, if you come up with attractive, compelling offers, being your dog training programs, sell them the right way and learn how to sell them and not be scared of losing out on with certain people because they're like that's too much money.
Mhm.
You can really build a pretty amazing thing. So do me a favor and talk a little bit about that because like going out of your comfort zone, walking away from the board and trains, which was great money, and kind of like venturing into this world of only doing private training lessons.
Yes. So, I first want to clear up really quickly that another piece of my slow growth, I think, is a lot of resistance. You have
Uh,
come up against that many times with me. So I'm not as fluid as I would like to be. I'm not as fluid sometimes as I would like my owners to be,
mhm.
but it has taken me a while, and I have gotten to the place where, yeah, it's like, you know what, what if I do try this? And I guess over time with doing the things that I had done, I don't know if I really have a good answer for you. So doing things the way that I have done, and being tired of it, or not having the lifestyle that I want, I think, is what really pushed me to experiment with the private lessons. First of all, it is a full-time caretaker job, and I did do a really good job of having something called a block week where I would not schedule dogs during that time. And so it takes a little bit of planning to do it, but you have to have time for yourself. I'm still not actually where I in my growth right now. I have backslid a little bit where I
Uh,
don't have a lot of great time for myself. Um, but I'm working on kind of getting back to that. But anyway, so with my board and train, I wanted a different quality of life. That helped because it was something that I wanted. Um, and being open to things, it takes a lot of work. I
mhm.
don't know if I can kind of plug somebody here, give me, whether or not I can.
Absolutely, yeah.
No, okay. So my first mentor, Cameron Thompson with Hope 2 Canine, she did an amazing job at and again, I'm harder, right? I'm really hard to I dig my heels in. I'm one of those dogs where I dig my heels in. So
Uh-huh.
she worked with me for a really long time, and I credit my willingness to be open, I think, to the work that we did before when I first started.
Yeah.
So that takes some time to build that skill. Again, just there's so many parallels with this dog training, and us and our personal growth or what we have going on, that we have to realize that we've got to build that muscle and continue to work at it every single day.
Yeah.
And there's still definitely times, like I said, there's things you just mentioned to me recently. It's almost like you should know when you bring something up to me. It's like, okay, fine. In a few months, maybe she'll be there. But it does take some time.
Yeah.
But to go back to when I finally did decide to be open, and I don't know if this was quite. I would think of this like the turning point for me was on the sales end that you coached me through.
Yeah.
Some of those pieces when I finally let it go and I gave in to doing that, that was a little bit of a turning point for me as far as being more open to other things. I hope that
Yeah.
makes sense. And then once I started that ball rolling and I started getting this, oh, okay, well, that didn't hurt so much. But did you die? I didn't die. And so moving into, being more open to things. And I think that was part of the catalyst of getting me into, I want a different quality of life. I want to be able to sleep at night and not have to worry about pottying dogs at night and pottying dogs in the morning and feeding them and maybe, create nonsense. Because my house is not very big. It happened in my house. I have a 1,400 square foot house, little
Mm,
rancher. So it's not like I had dogs in the basement or in the garage. They were literally down the hall. So, put all of those things together and I was like, all right, I'm going to try this private lessons thing.
yeah.
And that's a whole nother skill, especially for somebody like me who I really do struggle as much as I talk, and as much as I do love people and I love to talk to people. I always literally stepping into everyone's home or like even picking up the phone. I cringe, right? I get really tight because I get really super nervous to talk to them.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother when you're trying to train the dog at the same time and articulate it and walk the owner through. That is actually a different skill to have to learn than it is to train the dog. Nobody's there. Even if you have the camera on, it's not the same thing. And then teach them what you've done in the back
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
I feel like I went over a whole lot of things there, but
No, that was super helpful. I mean, I think that the term that you used before and the term I always think about with you is perseverance. And that is something that's my favorite qualities in our clients and people that I work with is people who are willing to persevere
Mhm.
and not freak out and just shut it down as soon as the first thing goes wrong. Because
You
that's
freak
the
out on
more
the
common thing to
inside.
do. Yeah, I know. Well, that's what you feel like doing, and you have to resist that urge of that like little voice inside of your head of saying like, oh, this won't work or whatever, and you'll never be able to do this and stuff like that. Um, and I love this anybody's story, and I feel like there's so many stories like this throughout time of people who just have grit, who just keep going, and even if they don't feel like doing it, they're just like, sure, I'm going to begrudgingly do it, but I'm still going to do it. And if you just keep showing up, you'll eventually figure it out. So I really want to talk about the sales part here because I do remember that. It's funny thinking back on any of my initial calls with longtime clients of like where we started and where we are today. But I remember our conversation very well and the beginning of our relationship as far as like what we were going to do, what our game plan was for growing this business and stuff like that. And yeah, I remember there being like resistance, rightfully so, because I'm it's not lost on me. I'm some random guy you had just met on the internet who's telling you to do different things. But resistance to doing consultations, getting in front of people, handling objections a certain way, maybe trying to like trim down on the initial phone call, like the amount of time you spend talking to people. All of this sounding familiar?
Oh yeah, it still
Yeah.
creeps in a little bit every once in a while. It's there.
Yeah. So talk to people about that real quick and like what your experience has been with like going all in on doing consultations and not necessarily having gangbuster success in the beginning, but over time getting better at it.
Yes. So again, going back to like building that muscle. So it first starts with just saying like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. This has not worked in the
Yeah.
past. What's comfortable for me, something that I use with my clients these days a lot is like, growth doesn't come from your comfort zone. Discomfort is what builds your growth. And I'm very, very uncomfortable. Um, unless I'm not sure I'll have to go back to that, but I do. Like I said, I get uncomfortable, starting a brand new conversation with somebody. Even if I have a script, I still
Yeah.
sometimes have to go back if I feel like I get long-winded. And I'll just be honest with you, there are definitely times when I have hour-long
Uh,
phone conversations and they're supposed to be 20 minutes.
yep.
But again, that's just that kind of, that behavior just kind of creeping back in sometimes. But yeah, so being open and just saying, okay, I'm going to try it this way. And it has nothing to do, I can understand it being frustrated. It has nothing to do with me saying, oh, Kevin's full of it. He doesn't know what he's talking
Uh,
about. It really just is sometimes we get stuck in our own cycle and our own default behaviors. And finally, just having enough out stubborning yourself and saying, all right, I'm going to try it. Let me just try
yeah.
it for a day. Let me try it for 2 days, a week, whatever it is. And then finding that success and
Yep.
growing that muscle, growing that skill of being able to do it.
Yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
really important.
Yeah.
Um, and then that's with everything. So, I am still, of course, being a woman going into, strangers' homes, sometimes still hesitant about going there, but I have safety processes in place. And so
Yeah.
I go in and chat with everybody. And sometimes we have a good time and, make some sales.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit because I feel like that's something that's helpful for because there are a lot of women in this industry, and I feel like that can be a concern. What I always tell everybody is like first and foremost, my concern for all my clients is always going to be your safety. You know what I mean? Like we don't want to be going into you don't want to be going to like Buffalo Bill's house, you know?
Right.
So like
Right.
you got to be make sure that you're safe and stuff like that. So what are some of the things that you have found to be most beneficial for yourself as far as going and doing consultations and stuff?
So number one, really trusting my gut. If something just doesn't feel right, and I feel like
Yeah.
that's kind of a cheesy answer, but it really is. It hasn't happened too often, maybe twice this entire time, where I've said, you know what, we need to meet somewhere else. There was just something about it. And one person, I just canceled it. I really was uncomfortable with the language they were using, how they were describing themselves.
Yeah.
There was just some stuff there where I was like, you know what, there's nobody that can come save me in a great amount of time. So
Yeah.
I did go ahead and cancel that one. But mainly the safety protocols I have on board is I do send, I use, of course, Google Maps. I can share my ETA with my husband. And then as soon as
Mhm.
I get there, I text the people that I'm there, and I send my husband a pin drop. Is what I do. I send him exactly where I am, and then I'm very vigilant about letting him know when I leave. So he
Mhm.
gets the share ETA when I go, and then he gets the hey, I'm on my way home when I leave. Because my
Yeah.
consultations sometimes can last a little bit longer too, because I do get wordy um,
Yeah.
and talk with people a lot. So there's that. There's definitely, I do live in Virginia, so I could technically conceal carry. If anybody feels comfortable doing something like that, that would be an option for me. But it just comes down to making sure that you have somebody that knows where you are, where you're going, like be really vigilant and just this is what I'm doing every single time.
Yeah.
Because he knows 100%. If I'm doing this 100%, there's never any doubt. If I don't text him back in a certain amount of time, then he needs to put some, action in place. And so having somebody that's
Yeah.
got your back like that is really crucial.
Absolutely. And I think that the most important thing is like this conversation is only to just, out of extreme caution because
Yeah.
like it doesn't even seem like you've ever run into a situation where you were like fearing for your safety or something
No.
like that, right?
No.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, just going back to like consultations, people have heard me and other clients, and when I talk about this with Angel on calls and stuff like that, like many times, but it still shocks me the amount of people that I get on calls with who don't really maybe they had one experience where they did a consultation and somebody didn't buy or something like that. And they're like, well, that was a waste of my time and money. And they write the whole thing off. Or they see another business that's a really successful company not doing them. And they're like, well, if they don't do them, then I shouldn't have to do them or whatever it is. Right.
Right.
There's so many different reasons, or people just never really thought through it. And they're just like, they've never really paid attention to what their closing percentage is. So they never really thought about like as simple as it may seem, like, hey, when I meet with people face to face, 80% of people buy. And when I meet with people or talk with people on the phone, only 20% of people buy. And, I feel like I have a lot of conversations with people where when I bring that up to them and I really make them think through that, they're like, no, I really do close more people. More people sign up for higher ticket programs when I meet with them face to face.
Yep.
And so I'd love to hear like your experience and just like your overall journey with that, because I remember that was something in the beginning that we did, and you've gone back and forth in it. And there's been periods of time where you were like, well, I didn't want to tell you, but I actually was doing some of these sales over the phone and stuff like that. And now it seems to me, is like you have fully committed to this, where it's like everybody that calls you, unless you just don't want to meet with them, or unless somebody's ready to pay you over the phone because they were a referral or something like that. But by and large, your process is lead comes in, I talk to that person, and I set them up for a consultation, and that's just what it is, right?
Yes. So back when I did do board and train, I had the 3-step process where so I was used to it. People would come to me, we would do the consultation. I think it's important, especially for me, the way that I view things, face to face is just crucial. I think we've all learned it during COVID, like being able
Yeah.
to sit in front, or even over social media, being able to sit in front of somebody, stand in front of them, and get their whole vibe, their whole aura. You can't, like, we're so visual. We're so visual when we watch people talk, or the tone that they use, whatever it is. It's really helpful for us as just communicators in general to get in front of somebody.
Yes.
Now I will tell you, back when I was kind of experimenting with just doing it over the phone, or try like maybe getting rid of it, that there were two thoughts in my head. Number one was, yeah, wasting my time and my money. And
Mhm.
the second one was, other people are doing it, so I should be able to.
Yeah.
So, but those were very short-lived, thankfully. And I can tell you without a doubt, being able to get in front of somebody, really check them out, have them check me out, and really get to know them and begin to build that relationship, and even work the dog a little bit. I think
Mhm.
that that is a big part. Now, it's not all of the dogs. If I do think that they are a bite risk and we don't have, muzzle on board or something like that, I'm super cautious about that. And I don't necessarily work the dogs, but like being able to show them, hey, look, this is what we can accomplish for you. This is what I really see. I will also tell you that being able to put your eyeballs on that dog is crucial. I just went to a consultation yesterday,
Yeah.
and this lady was so worried about her two dogs. She was like, I think they're going to bite people. Like, the way that they described these dogs, even with the questions that I was asking her, the answer she was giving me was that these were like overly confident, I'm going to bite you, I'm going to bite other dogs. And then when I got in front of her and I saw them and I actually evaluated them, they're insecure and fearful. They actually avoided the heck out of me. And I don't
Interesting.
I come in trying to be very non-confrontational with dogs in general. So I don't come in, all hot and heavy and like, let me show the dog thing. Um, they definitely were a lot softer and more worried than anything else. And so being able to, again, read the human, get to know them, build that relationship, along with putting your eyeballs on the dog, maybe work them, show them what you can do, show them what they can accomplish with you, is really important. And I think that that helps massively in being able to sell, at least it does for me, being able
Yeah.
to close those deals.
Yeah. I mean, I've had people say to me, like, well, I don't need to meet with people because I can get a good feel over the phone. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. But at the same time, if you're somebody who feels that way, first off, you are making an assumption that the owner knows what the hell they're talking about and isn't just giving you totally nonsensical information, right? That's the first thing.
Yep.
And the second thing that you need to understand is like, even if we do make that assumption that they do give you the correct information and you can make an assessment over the phone, that doesn't change the fact that they don't really get to see you. And if you don't meet with them face to face, and it doesn't allow you the opportunity to build the know, like, and trust, which, as we know, is the most important thing when it
Yep.
comes to sales. Like, look no further than that. If you're having a hard time making sales, like if you can't get people to say yes over the phone, just commit. I'm telling you right now, just commit to doing like 90 days straight of unapologetically doing consultations with everybody, not even questioning it. Because here's the reality. You may go and do consultations and there may be no difference. You may not start selling more people right away. But that's not because it doesn't work. It just may be because like you suck at doing consultations and you suck at sales, right? For lack of a better term, and you need
Right.
to get better. And everybody has been there. I sucked at a certain point, and it was only through repetitions that I got somewhat okay at it. And then you get better and better and better. And so if it's not working in the beginning and you can't close people over the phone and you can't close them face to face, like if you can't close them face to face, you're never going to be able to close them over the phone. That's the most important thing for people to understand. And getting face to face is going to force you out of your comfort zone, force you to get better, force you to get just more well-rounded in communicating with your clients and overcoming objections and stuff like that. And I promise you, I've never seen a single person who committed to doing in-person consults for like a 3-month period. Really, it usually doesn't even take that long, that it didn't work out for really, really well, and who isn't like killing it in their business right now. So
Right.
Jessica, is there anything like that you would like to add to that? Like that you feel like I didn't touch on there or anything else before we kind of move on to the next thing here, as far as consults and sales go, that you feel like is like really important for people to know?
Yeah, so for those that are like me that really are uncomfortable with maybe even some aspects about themselves. So I joke about this a lot, but I do have ADHD. I struggle with that.
Mhm.
But putting myself out there in front of people, I literally will go in with a clipboard. I have mini scripts. I have
Mhm.
things that I write down. And if somebody like like if I keep looking down and reading it, or if I feel like I'm reading it a lot, because it still happens. I mean, I've been doing
Yeah.
this for a while. And sometimes my brain just is so scattered and jumbled. I need those notes. And one of the biggest things that has also helped me is just accepting that about myself and just saying,
Mhm.
okay, well, you know what? It is what it is. If they don't like me because I'm a notes girl and I have to like double check and make sure that I'm, checking the boxes, crossing the T's,
Yeah.
dotting the I's, whatever it is, then maybe we aren't a good fit. So that is something while you were talking that I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
Is just kind of there's a lot of things about again that entrepreneurship and going through this journey that can be humbling, but then you start to get feedback about like that doesn't really matter, like all that nonsense in my head about having to remember things off the top of my head. It just it's nonsense, and it doesn't help you train the dog. It doesn't help you connect with the person to be stuck in that space. So
Very well
letting that
said.
go was really, really helpful, and just saying, all right, man, I'm a notes girl. I need it.
Yeah,
It
it's
is.
extremely well said. I mean, there's different ways to look at things, and like what you're talking about there, I think you perfectly put it, where it's like it's also just like a fear of like, what if they're uncomfortable with me like having a notepad or writing things down or referencing and stuff like that. And as corny as this is, like somebody said this and it always stuck with me. That's like what fear really is, it stands for false evidence appearing real. Like you have that idea in your mind that like, oh, people are going to think less of me because I'm referencing my notes or something like that. When
Mhm.
in reality, they're probably just like, oh yeah, she's looking at a notepad, totally normal. It doesn't even read that thought doesn't even cross their mind. It's just like it just is the most normal thing. And I also think it probably adds a level of professionalism where you're like really paying attention to what they have to say, writing things down, making sure that you're going through your checklist of what's most important for you to cover with them. That
Yep.
only just makes it seem like it's a more serious operation than anything else?
Yep. Yep. I view it a little bit differently. Again, this probably does come from my like question
Uh,
of the fear side, but it also makes you appear a little more human too,
yeah,
right? We're not all perfect, even though we know that, but that also I think also creates a little more connection with the owners. They're like, oh, okay, cool. You know what? She's not perfect. She's a human like me, and it kind of helps maybe
yeah,
bring ease a little bit too.
yeah. That's super well said. Well, listen, I want to talk a little bit more about like where you're currently at now, because I feel like first off, I really appreciate you sharing your journey with everybody because, like I was saying before, perseverance is the whole thing. I heard somebody say this, and so two things. Like I heard somebody say, like if you just keep showing up and you keep doing it over a long enough time horizon, you will eventually win. And I
Yes.
know I said this to you like on one of our last calls, but it always makes me think of that Michael Jordan quote where he said, "I've never lost a game. I've only run out of time." And so,
Right.
like that always, it's kind of a funny thing to say, and he's obviously has a big ego and stuff like that. But the thing is like it really is true that like if you are given enough time, you will figure it out. If you give yourself enough grace, like your skill set will improve. You'll just get more comfortable with sales. You'll get more comfortable working dogs or whatever it is. And so, to anybody who's listening, if you feel like you're kind of lost out at sea right now and you don't feel like I'm good at sales or I'm not a people person, the only advice and the only advice that is really true as far as what I've received on this is keep forcing yourself into those situations
Mhm.
because it's like exposure therapy. When somebody has a phobia, like any clinical psychologist would tell you, it's like the only way you're going to get over that is by exposing yourself to it, and forcing yourself to go and walk through that uncomfortability. So by avoiding it, you're just kicking the can further down the road. And so just kind of be like, you know what? It's okay if I say awkward things or I don't know what to say. Just show up. Like
So
it's gonna get better, I promise.
yes. That's the other thing I had to accept about myself and just like go gloss over it and move on. I am
Yeah.
an oversharer a lot of
Uh,
times, and there's definitely times where I'll go down little rabbit holes with clients. And I just have to kind of, pretend it didn't happen and just keep on moving forward, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
no, you're 100% correct. Given enough time, like I said at the very beginning, it has been excruciatingly slow for me. And there have been so many times where I have either didn't want it. I don't want the discuss. There's so many things that I just I'll sit in the I don't want to
mm,
moment a lot of times. But then I stop and I think, okay, you know, is it worse for me to feel this way, or am I going to regret it at some point? So I
fair.
do love, regardless of the ups and the downs and, all of the nonsense that I put myself through or the things that happen in my business, the struggles that I have, I certainly don't regret it. I don't regret staying with it. Right. And for me also, the ultimate failure for me would be if I said I can't hack it and I quit. I need to, if I do ever leave this industry, it'll be because I say, you know what? I'm perfectly comfortable saying I don't want to do this anymore. Because right now, if I say I don't want to do it, it comes from maybe a negative place. Whether I am, tired. Like right now,
Yeah,
we'll talk about sure, like where I am right now. I'm exhausted, just
yeah.
as exhausted as if I was doing a bunch of board and trains.
Uh-huh.
This is kind of that season of growth that I'm in. Um, I don't want it to come from that place. I want it to come from a good place where I'm like, wow, you know what? Thank you, Freedom Canine. Thank you, my clients. Thank you, for and this seems cheesy, the journey. I
Yeah.
appreciate that, but I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to do something else. So just
Yeah.
another little tidbit, my husband is building his business too. And as much as I love doing what I do, I also want to be a part of that team as well. So, if it ever got to a place, that would be an acceptable reason for me to stop my business is because it's like,
Yeah.
hey, I've done this. I enjoyed it most of the time. But now it's time for me to move on to that and not stuck in that place because it wouldn't quitting because something was too hard or I couldn't hack it or I didn't push myself through is more uncomfortable to me than being where I'm at now and having to push through.
Yeah, and that's really well said. I mean, the other thing is, I think you just touched on something there that is so important, and it's a little bit cliche, but it's true.
Right?
You really don't fail until you quit. It's not over until you quit, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
listen, there's different reasons to walk away from things. If you're truly not happy, that's actually not failure. If you leave something because you're really not happy, that's actually not failure, right? What's failure is like you love something and you want it and you give up on it because of like some fear that crept in. That's what failure is,
And
you
it's almost
know?
like giving up on myself, like that, and
Yeah.
that's where I would be in those moments. Like way back when we first started working together, that's where I was, and I was feeling horrible
Mm,
because I felt like I was giving up on myself. I felt like, like the range of emotions that I was going through.
yeah.
Um, and that's not where like I said, that's more uncomfortable than being, pushing through again,
Yeah.
putting myself out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I always think about, because I heard somebody say this, it's like they're both hard. Both things are hard.
Yeah.
Pushing through is and learning a new skill set and putting yourself in very uncomfortable situations. That's very hard. What also is very hard is not having a successful business and not making money.
Right.
That's very difficult. It's like which hard would you prefer?
Choose
Would
your
you prefer
hard.
yeah, you
Yeah.
choose like where you continue to not make money and continue not to like fulfill what you feel is like your goals and your destiny, or you take the momentary difficult, hard, where you kind of like have to put yourself out of your comfort zone. And that will pass. And there will be a time where you can do it in your sleep. Like that's the thing that's really interesting about it. And there will always be the next iteration of what difficult is. And that's what business is all about, is it's just about solving the next bigger and more difficult problem. And all of us can kind of like relate to this. When you first start a business, like the problem is only, how do I get clients? How do I start this business? Right. And then it becomes, in a weird way, like, how do I keep up with the business? And how do I not get burnt out? And what do I have to do with that? So it's a good problem to have, but it's interesting. I think that some people can, when you're just getting started, can kind of roll your eyes at that and go like, oh, lucky you, what a good problem to have. Like, you're so busy, you're making
Different.
money, you can't keep up with it. But it's difficult. And until you get there, we will all experience that one day,
Yep.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about like where you're at now. So I want people to see like what all this was for, because like that's the most important thing, is like you grind and you work and you fight through different situations, and you come out on top, and you end up where you're at now, which is selling high ticket dog training programs, which don't take up your entire life, at least not like a board and train does or day training does and stuff like that. So you
Right.
have a lot of work, obviously, but we had a couple of weeks ago where you sold, I think, like $10,000 worth of dog training in a single week. Now, and I want to be clear, not every week is like that, right? It's not like
Right.
we're just, printing $10,000 weeks, but tell people a
I'm a
little bit about,
billionaire. No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding.
Tell people where you're at right now, what your business is looking like what the last 30 days has looked like. Just ballpark. I know you may not have those numbers off the top of your head.
Oh, heck no. I'm one of the horrible ones. I have to go back and look at our Alfred and see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that one week. I think I sold 4 out of 4. And it was, I think, a little over 10,000 is what I sold.
Yep.
And since then, most of my consultations have turned into, and I say that again without looking at my black and white numbers, have turned into a sale. So where I am right now, I actually feel guilty about it because I can't get people started right away, and I can't
Yeah.
begin to ease their pain right away. And I have a couple of workarounds. Again, problems that we have to work through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm booking out. I don't know if you want me to tell everybody about my lessons. Basically, it's we start in private lessons, they graduate, and then we transition into group classes. That way, they get long-term aftercare and support. I think that's crucial. Just as we're
Yeah.
talking about my journey, there's always, again, cliche and cheesy, but it is a lifestyle. It's a journey with your dog, and offering folks the ability to get back in front of me and have
Mhm.
a safe space to continue to work their dog in public, I think is really important. And so that's how I do it. And so where I'm at right now is I'm booking out into July at this point. Now, some of that has to do, it is just me. I'm a one-woman show. You are my only source of resourcing something out. I do everything
Uh-huh.
else myself, which is why if anybody looks it up, there's not a lot of videos out there. I have accepted that is something that I'm not doing right now, is
Yeah.
putting myself out there on social media. I'm okay with it. I've made peace with it. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Oh, sorry. Let me back up a little bit. I do make sure that I don't, and even though like right now I'm super tired, I kind of have overextended myself a little bit, but
Mhm.
I don't just say, okay, come on, everybody, let's start right away. I have to get through some clients and then start the next wave, because
Yeah.
then I would never have, like, I wouldn't be able to do consultations and I wouldn't be able to get on the phone with everybody. So, and I also have to make sure that like, depending on what I have going on, like Sunday is my one day. I try to have 2 days off a week, but it's like Sundays are family days. My husband works a regular job. He works during the week. And so it's like Sundays are sacred. I have to make sure that we have our time together. I have to make sure I can, take care of myself.
Yeah.
That's really important. We've got to make sure that we are still, our family is most important. And then we have to make sure that we 100% are taking care of ourselves. So I
Yep.
limit the amount of people that I take on at one time. So that's a little piece of it.
Mhm.
Some of it, of course, is learning, again, having the newer problem, learning how to correctly schedule people in the same area. I'm in Central Virginia. There is where, we've got Richmond, but it's pretty rural. So I can go someplace down like Colonial Heights is 30 minutes south. Powhatan, I know, I'm just saying all these names. That's 30 minutes west. And then I've got folks all over the place. I have some people that are 50 minutes from me. So learning how to schedule my time a little better, and putting people in the same spot. That's one thing that I need to get better at. But that's kind of where I'm at. And again, like I said, I just limit, to go back to your main question, I just limit what I have and make sure that I get to everybody and I'm available for them. I'd hate to, one of the things that hurts my heart the most is when somebody calls me because they need support or they reach out, and I want to always be there for them. I would feel worse if I wasn't able to offer them that support.
Yeah. And so like, I think the most important thing at this moment is like just deciding what it is you want to do next, and this is something you and I were talking about on our last coaching call. And there's different things like we're talking about maybe scaling back on ad spend and stuff like that to just get a more consistent lead flow where you're not overwhelmed with the amount of leads you're getting and stuff like that. That's an option. Or and accepting the fact that like I'm really happy with the way that it goes right now, where it's me. I don't need to worry about managing other people, and I make a really good living from this, and I'm booked out, and I have consistency and all that fun stuff. Or you go, hey, I'm ready to kind of make the next leap and hire somebody. But that's the beauty of being in the situation that you're in right now, is you can do that. And then on the other side of things too, most people are so worried about filling up their own calendar. You know what I mean? You're at the point right now where you're like, in order to keep up with this, like I would have to fill somebody else's calendar. And so I think that's like a really, really awesome way to look at it, is that like you have all these opportunities at your disposal, that a lot of people never really get the opportunity to do, So like, when you first started, did you think, or was this the goal for you, or was there a world in which you were thinking like, hey, I would be one day having 10 or 15, $20,000 months, where I could be in a position to hire people? Or put yourself back in like 3 years ago where you were and like what you were thinking of the business and what you were trying to do with it.
Well, that was my goal. My goal was to have and I don't need to take over the world. I don't need to build an empire or anything like that. I'm perfectly happy, impacting the lives that I impact. And whoops, hang tight 1 second. So, but no, I mean, 3 years ago, like I said, I was scared of shutting it down. But that was my goal, was to have, a $150,000, $200,000 business.
Yeah.
The really cool thing about it was that I always thought you had to do it in board and train. And I know I'm kind of getting off topic a little bit.
No, I'm glad you are. This is what I wanted to hear you talk a little bit about.
Yeah, but you don't have to. And I really only have 2 programs. I don't have a ton of extra programs. And you and I've talked about having, some different programs before, but I really just have the 2. And it helps me focus on, what I'm doing. Now I can adjust those per client if I want to. But yeah, I mean, you can absolutely, if and I'm not sure if I'm going to articulate this or this is going to come out correctly, but, focusing on just a couple of things and continuing to get better at them and doing them really well, you can build something just small for yourself. So, or you can continue to expand on that. But it is very much just continuing to grow your skill and get better at all of the things. And deciding, what it is that you want and what resonates for you. I also think that, I think this is a little bit of backtracking, but I also think that, when we start to learn from people, especially if you're unsure of how to do something, we definitely start to mimic, or if you do work for somebody else, you have to do things the way that they want. And one of the challenging pieces for me was like, oh, I really like this. Oh, I really like this. Now, first of all, I did get into, a little bit of hopping around to exactly how I wanted to do things or doing that. But it was challenging to find, it took me a little bit longer to find what really resonated and feels good, and that I can stick with and say, okay, you know what, this is what's working for me. This is exactly what it is. I shifted it into, and there was a little bit of overlap there where I was still learning kind of what I wanted and what was resonating, but I was able to shift it into the private lessons and continue to help everybody. I feel like I'm helping more people too, versus just the limited board and train. Because I didn't take on a bunch of board and trains. I was not somebody that had a bunch of dogs in my house. I stopped myself at 3. Even if I felt like I could do 4, I was like, I'm just doing 3. And so that limits 3 people a month that I could help. And now I can get in front of a few more people and help a lot more people. I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, and just for people listening, because I know people are going to have questions, 2,500, right, is like the average program right now. We have, I think we have a lower ticket one, right? Just for like a certain, if like a certain, some people qualify for it or whatever, but
yeah, if there's an extremely well-bred dog, a breed that I know and I work with them and they're super easy, or the people are, they've got something really, simple-ish going on, then yeah, I'll do that.
fixing like one problem for them or something like that, like a
Yeah,
niche pulling. Yeah.
yeah. And that's actually something that we had talked about before. But then it comes down to having the time, kind of to develop the program and do it. But that I just stuck to the 2. Like I said, I've got 1, and it is an entire program. So I tell my clients, I'm like, I'm selfish. I'm committed to you as long as you're committed to you, and I want you to keep coming back to me.
Yeah. And so with the $2,500 program, how many sessions or how many weeks is it? How many sessions are you doing on average?
So the way that I do this, it really it's dog and owner dependent. So we definitely have 4, lessons that we do, and I actually do it on a results based basis. So what I'll do is like, hey, as long as you're doing your homework, if you still need some help, I'm committed to you, right? Let's just keep working it away, chipping away at whatever your issue is until you get it resolved. Now, as long as it does take some skill. Like if I have people that aren't doing homework, which has happened twice, thankfully, knock on wood, we will have that conversation. So you have to be able, you want to be comfortable having that conversation, that uncomfortable conversation, if because everybody knows if you've been doing this for a little bit of time, you can tell when the owner's doing the homework or not. And so as long as they're doing their homework and they still need that help, like I'm committed to them. I'm going to help you. Yeah. The other thing that I do that I don't put out there and offer very often is I can shift over into a day train scenario. So let's say, because I've had the experience with the board and train, I know how it works. I just need to block them in my schedule for that. So let's say somebody is really struggling and we've been, trying to work through all of these things, or it might just benefit the dog. I don't disagree that it can benefit the dog to get them out of their environment, right? Yeah. And maybe, getting them out of their environment and into a new one where they can listen a little bit better, because it can go either way. It'll either overly stresses the dog out to come here, or it can kind of be a little bit of a mini reset. And so having me do the heavy lifting is an option as well. So yeah. I am open to kind of shifting the program just a little bit. For sure. But that's what we start with. We start with foundational work, and it gets into behavior mod. Like I said, I have the 2 programs. One is just the Training for Life program. We can get into a little bit of behavior mod with that. But the other program that I have is called the Safe Dog Program. So if a dog is more, and this is why being able to get in front of them and see the dog and really try to, I don't often bring my dogs but I know a lot of people do, and I've done it before, where it's like, hey, if their dog aggressive, I want to see how intense are they? What am I seeing with this dog? Then they would fit into the Safe Dog Program, and that's a little more intense. That's your more of your aggression type stuff. Yeah. But that's just kind of what I stick with.
I love that. I mean, I think that there's so many people, especially when you first get started and you're somebody who's charging $25 or $50 a lesson, or even $100 a lesson, that you can't imagine a world in which somebody pays you $2,500 for 4 lessons. Now, you're obviously giving all this support and back-end support and stuff like that, and it's entirely results-based. So you're going to work with people until you help them. Like, you're not just going to be like, hey, sorry, you got 4 lessons and that's it. See you later. Right. Right. But that is the key right there. To anyone who's wondering how this is done, is like being willing to sell people on results. Now, obviously, it's a difficult thing to do, especially with behavior modification and stuff like that. And there's a lot of communication that needs to happen there with the owner, as far as like goal setting and expectation setting and stuff like that. But if you can set realistic expectations, that is one of the most key components to sales that I think a lot of people overlook, is like, how good is your offer, right? Not like, hey, you get this many lessons from me. It's like, these are people are paying you to fix their problems, being a solution to their problems. And if you can guarantee them that and work with them until you can actually fix that,
Yep.
man, that's going to make the sale so much easier versus saying, hey, it's $2,500 and it's 4 lessons. And hey, not every dog's the same.
Yeah.
I can't promise you anything. I can't even promise that I can get your dog to stop pulling on the leash. We'll see how far we can get.
Yep.
People don't want to hear that. Like, that's not a compelling offer. So I think what you're offering people right now of like, hey, we're going to work with you. We're going to get you results. This is a results-based program, but here are the results that I think we can actually expect and set that expectation up front with them. I think that's why you're having so much success with this. And the price comes secondary to that. Like what I always think about is in sales, like you can even ask people this question: what's more important to you, the money, the price, or the results you're going to get? And a lot of people are going to say the results, right? Like that's why we're doing this. So they will be willing to pay a premium on actually getting those results.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on something that you had said. I am really transparent with folks. So I am one of those that does say, hey, I do believe that I can get your dog to a really great space. However, if they're showing me, that they're still really uncomfortable. So for example, a lot of folks do want their dog to be super social. We know that that's just not always the case. So I do want to be very clear with them, like, hey, like, I know we can get this dog to a great place. I can get them to stop doing this. We can do this together. But if your dog does show me, like, the other piece that I'm supporting you in is being fully transparent throughout this process. Hey, your dog is capable of this. They may not be capable of this. We can continue. So it's not a full on, hey, your dog's going to be 100% rehabilitated kind of a thing. I do absolutely. We've got to set those expectations. And being comfortable with doing that is also, I think, a piece of why, like, again, I had to build that skill and become more confident with being fully transparent and just saying, hey, look, if your dog shows me that, they really just don't want to be friends with other dogs, we're not going to force that. I'll get you a dog that you can control and communicate with, and we'll do everything in our power to help them feel better about that. And I'm sure we can get them to feel better. How far, we have to reserve judgment until we're actually in it and see what your dog is going to be capable of. So there's that piece that is really important, but it does come down to setting those expectations, but also giving them hope, giving these people hope and being there for them. I think that's one of the biggest pieces, like, especially recently. If you had asked me 3 years ago what my strengths were, I don't know if I could have told you at all. But I do think one of the things that I do share with folks is a lot of empathy, a lot of love and caring, and saying, hey, this is going to be, and I'm kind of a jokester too. So I'll make, little sarcastic comments and hopefully get everybody to loosen up and laugh. But I'm like, hey, I know that it's difficult. I'm gonna hold your hand. I'm gonna slap it too if we need to and tell you to stop doing what you're doing. But then I'm gonna hold your hand and I'm gonna be there for you and coach you through this. And so I also sell them on that too. It's like, hey, this is just like therapy. You're literally getting ready to go through therapy with your dog, and having somebody there that can talk you down from the wall and hold your hand and get you through it is really crucial too. And I think that's part of my success, as you can kind of see, and everybody can kind of see, I'm crazy optimistic. I have a lot of energy. And so, helping people feel better about themselves is really important to me too. So I think that's a big piece of it.
I want to wrap this up because I don't want to keep you all day, but I just want to say thank you so much for like taking the time to do this with me. This has been a long time coming. I mean, we've been working together for at least three, like, I think at least coming up on our 3rd year, right? Pretty soon. Yeah.
Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way.
Yeah. But the thing is I feel like I think you hit on something really good there that I think is important for people to know, which is like you got to give people hope. And I think by telling them that you can stand on firm ground with me, that I can make this better, that's a really compelling thing. And like, even if you're like, hey, I don't know how far we're going to be able to get with your dog, we're going to have to kind of see as we go. But what I can tell you is I'm going to work my absolute hardest and do everything I can do with you to help you succeed. These are things that you can say to inspire confidence. Like, you don't need to say like, hey, your dog that's bit 4 people, like, yeah, one day we're going to be able to just let them off leash at the dog park and everything's going to be fine. Like, I'm not saying that we start doing that, because that's how we start getting ourselves into real trouble. But people want to hear that that things are going to get better. Why else would they be paying us? you
Right.
know? So it's like we need to be able to stand, like I said, on firm ground and be able to tell people, give them a real compelling reason. And that can come in different forms. Like I said, like whether that's I'm going to be here by your side to answer any questions. You're never going to need to worry about like, am I going to be abandoned? I'm going to do everything I possibly can and things will get better. Like that is the most important thing. If you don't actually think that you can make things better for this person, then don't take them on as a client, right? Because that's just going to be, bad all around. So, you should feel confident being able to give people some sort of guarantee, some sort of results, that
Mhm.
you're going to at least make some sort of improvement in their life. And I
Yep.
think that right there will help with your sales process. But Jessica, let's do this. Like, is there anything else you want to like leave people with? Like anything that you've been thinking about like throughout like our conversation here that you feel like is important for people to know when it comes to running their own business? Or any just like piece of wisdom that you'd like to impart on anybody? No pressure, right? Like
So
here's your
much pressure,
moment to say
Kevin.
something
So much
really
pressure.
profound.
I know now
Yeah.
it's going to come out all blah, blah, blah. Um, yes. So, no, there's so many things.
Yeah.
Um, I think I've already talked about it, but, making sure that you are, taking care of yourself, taking care of your family. I think that that's really, really crucial. Again, mostly for this entrepreneurial journey. And I'm not the best at it. I really not all the time. Like I'll go through phases. So that's another thing is just giving yourself some grace, continuing your education.
Yep.
And that can be through all kinds of things. Keep learning, keep striving, keep showing up for yourself. That's the other piece. You've mentioned it a couple of times. And I'm glad that we kind of circled back around and talked about it, but keep showing up for yourself in all of the ways, and really be determined, to even if it's your own bad habits. I tell folks you have to outstubborn your dog sometimes. Like we've got to outstubborn ourselves even, and make sure that we're still heading towards our goal. And sometimes what that means is for those that are doing private lessons, or if you're doing board and training, you find that you are like, I don't have a break. I have no
Yeah.
day off. Schedule that shit. Make sure
Yeah.
you're able to sit still and really be able to go back and reflect on what you're doing. And, regardless of the reason why, whether it's like looking for more money or, it's like, I'm just so tired and burnt out, because we burn ourselves out. I mean, dog trainers absolutely do this because they care immensely, and you can really wear yourself out
Yeah.
doing that. So I think that those are really, really important.
Yeah.
Definitely get the hustle in where you can, because that's and be determined, and build your business, build your empire, build your brand, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But make sure you do take that time to, just do nothing. Just like we might say, hey, you know what? Your dog needs to go in the crate to relax. Your dog needs to go on place to relax and learn to decompress. Like put yourself on place, put yourself in the crate, take a day or a week and really get that rest and that
Yes. Mhm.
recovery. That's crucial.
Yeah. Super well said. Yeah, I think for anybody who's listening, if you're feeling burned out, here's the reality. If you are the business owner, you're your own boss. And newsflash, unfortunately, you're the one who's burning yourself out because you control
That's
your schedule. And if you look at it from the perspective, my clients control my schedule, it's like, then we need to put some checks and balances in place where we have some hard lines in the sand, where it's
Yep.
like our clients actually don't control us. We are
Yep.
the ones like, yeah, we want to work with our clients and we want to like be willing to be flexible and work with them on their time frames. But at a certain point, if they're the ones running the show, then you don't actually own the business. They do, and you're just like
Yep.
working for them. So
Yep.
I think you've
Exactly.
said so many different helpful things today.
Thank
So
you.
sincerely, like I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. And this has been helpful for me. And I hope that this inspires other people because you really are a testament to like what hard work gets you, and not giving up. That is the
Not giving
most
up.
important thing. And if you're feeling, I know we've talked about this a couple times, but I just want to leave everybody with this. If you're feeling lost, even if that means you're making $50,000 a month right now and you're looking to get to $100,000 a month and you don't know how to get there, or you're making $0 a month and you're just trying to make $3,000, we all have our own version of this.
Mhm.
And just keep pushing through because something better is coming. You will figure it out, but make sure you take the time and set aside the time to really strategize about it and not just keep trying to force a square peg in a round hole. Like
Right.
take an hour of your time in the morning to sit and think through problems. Don't just be like, oh, it'll get better on its own. It won't. Be willing to test new things, be willing to be flexible and malleable, and take what's working from other people and make it your own.
Yep.
So as always, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this interview with Jessica, and we will have to do another one further down the road to see where you're at. But
Yep.
Jessica, why don't you hang on for a second? I'm going to end this here, but I know we got to finish up a couple things we were talking about before. But we will see you guys very soon. See you guys.